Welcome.
Welcome.
PCA podcast number, we'll tell you later. We're just talking about world events, and obviously there's been a lot of kind of charged topics in the news lately, and things that put the world in perspective, put your own like personal universe in perspective. Personally, I've come like full circle thinking, oh, how significant is or insignificant it is what I do, and then realizing that that's not the case at all. I think if more of the world were artistically minded, creatively minded, creative in general, regardless of their field of expertise, and we embraced art, that maybe the world would be a better place. And I know that I've found just through all the experience I've had in my life that it's made me more tolerant of diverse people and more understanding. Just being surrounded by those really unique individuals that tend to flock to the arts. And it's just interesting to put that all in perspective and realize how important it is that we stay grounded in I think what we all know is true, and that is do unto others. You know,
Yeah.
It's really simple. Things get so complex, politically or just, whatever else is going on in the world. But I think we can all agree on that, or at least maybe we should all agree on that.
Yeah. It's weird because so you guys know, we had this conversation, like, the last 20 minutes has been, I feel like adrenaline in my body, just from the intensity of it, and it was like a good spirited conversation between friends about things that really, for me, come back to, we were talking about the terrorist attack in Orlando and all the things that have been going on in the world. And I think what brings up a lot of heavy emotion for me is the lack of control, and sort of I'm not a very politically minded person. I'm sure if you were to dissect all the things that I think and feel and believe, that there are politics. I have politics, but
labels for everything.
You could label it something or other, but I don't. I would probably say I'm fortunate that I don't have to label it, and that I
think that's healthy.
It is. I mean, I guess I sort of look at it like, what. You only have one life. You only have a small sphere of influence, or you only have what you have. And I feel like my time is best spent doing the things that I do. Right. And I kind of think like, oh, I don't know what to do about all this other stuff, and right. I trust that other people do.
Away. I think that's kind of what I was
it's
saying at the beginning.
Away.
I agree, yeah, totally.
But then when I hear stuff like this and I get into the conversations, I start to feel emotions that don't have anywhere to go. Like, oh my gosh, that is so horrible. And when I feel something, we talk about this too, but when I feel something strongly, I gotta do something. Like, thinking and feeling things to me there's like thought plus emotion equals action. And to me, the action usually means art. And then the older I get, the more it equals art, and then also helping other people create their art. So like my growing sense of responsibility, or something that fulfills me, and the sense of generosity that I have is that I feel like I can give back to other artists and
right.
whatever, all different kind of capacities.
Yeah, it's funny because I think there's a lot of artists out there that, or sometimes it feels like most artists out there get that what you're feeling confused with having a political stance and then diarrhea of the mouth on subjects that perhaps they are not an authority on, and they're using their popularity, their influence, their power, if you will, to further what they think, when they're not staying focused on their area of expertise and what they truly have been educated in.
Yeah, the whole thing gets confused.
It can be a little dangerous. I think the thing that I've really been going over in my head this last week is what's healthy to talk about, maybe as artists, and what I would love to see from more popular artists, career artists, is that we maybe change the focus to having mature, calm, fact-based discussions, and not be afraid to ask unpopular or perhaps politically incorrect questions, and have an actual discussion with no knee-jerk reactions,
or at least not bad ones.
Yeah, no emotional responses, no label, no name calling.
But see, that's the thing. Am I cutting you off prematurely?
No, just to wrap it up, just so that I get the context in there, is that I think so many of these conversations or discussions or opposing points of view can be derailed. And I mean, look at any internet thread, and it just about after 3 or 4 posts, it just degrades into name calling.
A game of telephone.
Yeah, and I think like when you throw out charged words or labels at someone as they're presenting a point of view, it's a conversation stopper. You can no longer continue, at least with that person. You can no longer continue, and you just got to call it quits. Otherwise, it just degrades, and I don't know if we can get much use out of that. I don't know if that goes anywhere, but that was my point, I guess.
Yeah, and I think part of one thing I latched onto is like fact-based, and then you said unemotional. So I'm curious. Like, I'm of the opinion, and I don't know if you agree or disagree, but I feel like emotions are facts, and that our thinking.
Maybe I should have said logic-based.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think.
Although I mean, the context of facts still applies, but I think in the sense of just keeping it following the nuance of language. And
how is it good though to we're putting, okay, so I'm gonna get myself in dig my own grave with this, but would you put, okay, so logic or thought and emotion are facts of being alive, right? Thinking often leads to feeling often leads to thinking. It's chicken or the egg. We don't really know. We know it happens both directions. You know what I mean? We could wake up after eating Taco Bell and feel horrible, and then the next thing we say is something mean because we feel bad. We could, hear that Taco Bell, I don't know why I'm talking Taco Bell, some restaurant,
Well, they won the fast food wars.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. Every restaurant's a Taco Bell.
I'm very proud of them.
I don't know what movie that's from. It's from something. Sylvester Stallone. Anyway.
Rambo? Rocky. I totally lost a stupid example.
Rabbit hole as usual.
Yeah, but the idea was just, those are the facts of being human, is that we think things and we feel things. And you label, that's called like psychology, basically. So to have a rational discussion that isn't emotional is unrealistic, unless you're actually a person who's unhealthily unhuman, or like a schizoid, for example, who like doesn't feel. Or
I think having the
you
conversation
do with the
though,
emotions, right?
Well, but I think there has to be, the fact that you're exposing perhaps like politically charged ideas or positions, or even to the point of explaining the nuance of certain labels and certain doctrines, ideas, that you can have a more educated and intelligent discussion rather than just ending with a conversation stopper. also I think what's really important is to initiate conversation with an open mind, that if somebody presents a point of view that you haven't thought through, that or has information that you weren't privy to, that you have the ability to be intellectually honest and allow your mind to be changed, or to be open to an idea that you haven't been previously exposed to. I think that's it's just missing all the time, and there's some places you can get that. There's some podcasts and some shows that are based in intellectual discussion where you can get that. And I don't want to mention anything specific, because I think the specifics aren't important. I think I would just like to see, especially like this last week, it got so crazy, that we have less name calling, emotion, and let's discuss things logically.
So it's not that it's less emotion, it's more that it's emotional intelligence and maturity. So that, because I can have a lot of emotion and I can send my thoughts somewhere, but if that emotion is a degenerative emotion, like it makes me go like, well, your hair's stupid, you know, like if it turns you into a lower thinking.
Right, but I guess to get maybe a little specific, we're having a conversation and you say some buzzword or some phrase or something, there's some nuance of language that's used where I just call you a racist. You're a racist. And then now the conversation's over. No, there's nothing more that can be said.
Yeah, because that label has a lot of
right.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there that's going to make me
right.
emotional.
In a lot of cases, if it depends on who's speaking, of course, but if you look at the meaning of what's being said, and like I said before, like the subtlety that can be involved sometimes, like look at it scientifically, and like unpack it, so that you don't just throw this buzzword out there and then the conversation's over. I guess the whole point of this, I would like to see more of that from more mainstream people, rather than just, you know, vote for this person, or I think this and everyone else is wrong, and you know, you guys are all racist and you guys are all this, and or the opposite, where you know, you have the people who are being called racist making like crazy accusations and just off the deep end. I think it's unproductive, and especially given the events of the past week, and you know, without taking any sort of or without revealing any sort of political position, I think if each individual stays rooted in what they know, like I know marching percussion, I know indoor percussion, I know if it's on the field or in a gym, I'm an authority on the subject, and I should keep my intellectual discussions relative to that, because I think if I say, well, here's what I think and you guys are all wrong, it's irresponsible of me to do that. And if I were you know, a pop star and I had millions of followers who are hanging on every word that I say, and then I say something like that, regardless of where those opinions lie, it's dangerous. You know, I think the world would be better served if we just keep doing, like you said, you focus, you put all your energy into your art to give back in that realm. Everything you do has meaning. There's depth to it. And I feel the same way with what I do, and I guess that's how I can affect the world in a positive way. Varying
degrees of depth, but yeah, as much as I can put into it. And it's interesting because you said stick with what you know in a way, and then something like this happens, and we all have, or a lot of us have probably gotten into conversations about what happened in Orlando, and like what we know expands into like what we know to be right and wrong, you know, and then the deeper we go into that subject of right and wrong, just like, okay, walking in somewhere and just killing everybody, clearly wrong, and then you go to the next level. Why'd they do it? And you go to the next level, and the next level, and the next level. You just keep digging
that's
deeper.
Where it gets politically charged.
And it starts to get...
Everyone's pointing the finger. Well, it's because of this, and it's because of that. It's because of this, and I think that's when the experts, the people who are well versed in particular areas, need to come in with that nuance of language. Well, this is that, and this is that, and kind of unpack everything. And I think there should be, like, if there are sides to this, it's unfortunate there are sides, but in the event that there are sides to an issue, that everyone can listen with an open mind and be educated, because chances are, like, the people who are experts in the field, who are authorities on the subject, they probably have something to say that you don't know, that they've researched, that they're well versed in.
Yeah, it's funny, this phrase, cooler heads prevail. I hope that cooler heads prevail. That's basically saying, like, look, something crazy happened, there are reasons for it, so there are facts involved, and there's high emotion, and those who make decisions should have a cool head. Like, you shouldn't be all so wrapped up in your emotion, because technically, when you're super angry or super charged up in maybe a fight or flight mode or whatever it might be, they've proven that, blood goes to areas of your brain that just don't think in more nuanced ways. So, like, the psychology of that is, like, if you start saying things or acting when you're reactive emotionally, you're going to make lower quality decisions. And then this just happened. I mean, here's a recent event that means nothing compared to other recent events, but roughly a week ago, the #1 reporter in MMA, who covers all the UFC events, he's considered like probably the Howard Cosell of MMA. He was at an event, and it was like right before the last fight of the night, title fight with Michael Bisping, and he tweeted some news that the UFC was going to release in like an hour or something. And it was like that this fighter, this huge wrestling star, Brock Lesnar, was going to fight at UFC 200. And he found out about it and tweeted it. And like the president of the UFC and the owners of the UFC grabbed him had security go and get him and removed him from the venue and pulled him in the back. And he took somebody with him because he was kind of scared. And they said, your press license is revoked forever, and you're out of here for spreading news. And the vibe that people say is that somehow he had a mole in the UFC that was giving him this information. And they had this like multi-million-dollar commercial basically that at the very end revealed this guy's fighting. And he had tweeted, hey, they're in talks with this guy before. Right. And he ended up being right, and he has the right to reveal what he knows, and he was right, and he says that he got the information, in an on-the-level way, but the UFC, being a private company, said, how dare you get ahead of our big thing, and we won't let you in our events anymore. And it became this crazy thing, and on that Monday, he went on every TV show, and he went on his podcast, and he had 0 guests for the first time in like 300 shows or something. No UFC fighter would go on a show because they were afraid. And he was on his show for like an hour crying and stuff, talking about, my career is over because I merely tweeted some news. What do you want me to do? I don't work for the UFC. I'm a reporter. I didn't do anything wrong. And you got, and the next day he got his license back because cooler heads prevailed. But there's an example of just self-centered thinking, high emotion.
It's attacking the symptom.
Yeah.
Like, how about figure out where that info came from?
Yeah. And then decide whether or not he's a part of some bad thing. But, I mean, it's just an example of how crazy things can get when you're just emotionally charged. And that the best thing I could do, like I would say that it's a negative thing for me that I don't go towards that news, like I haven't read any any of the news on what happened in Orlando.
I steer clear of like politics.
I've just heard about it, and
crazy.
I'm like, that's horrible. That's awful. I hope, you know, slightly selfishly, I just hope that that never reaches my doorstep. But if I go toward it, I feel like I'm just going toward more of a feeling of less control.
Right.
And I don't know what to do other than write a song about it. And I don't know how it's meaningful for me to go towards that lack of control. And I don't know what song that's going to be. Or, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just trying to, like, oversimplify the whole thing, but...
I think if I were to... I agree with you, like, from an emotional standpoint, where I have an aversion to, you know, right-wing, left-wing, Democrat, Republican, like, any sort of political banter, I guess. And that I think I'm seeking just people not waving a flag, and I'm in this camp, or I'm in this camp.
Yeah.
Like, be more logical, scientific. Don't worry about camps. Don't worry about labels. Don't try to figure out, you know, where you belong. Just have that independent thought with some sort of control, like some sort of ground, and rooted in fact and logic, whenever possible. Even though that's not always possible, but when it's not possible, have an open mind, have a mature discussion. Don't name call.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, perhaps that's all utopian views, but I know it works for me, and you know, occasionally these things happen, and I have, you know, I have this thing inside where I want to know more. I want to know what smart people think, and I don't run to politicians you know, that are looking for my vote. I don't run to that. I look to what are the really, like, educated on this subject have to
in a way,
say
you're saying,
about
like,
this.
where can I go where somebody is the closest thing to, they have nothing to gain from talking about
They're not
this.
selling anything, and they're not
trying to get into a position of
they're not looking
power.
for your vote. Yeah,
That's what's really hard to find, because
it's out there. It's out there, and again, I'm not going to mention any specifics because people can find it on their own, but it's out there. You gotta explore. You gotta be committed enough to just want to learn, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, I just had a thought. You and I discussed, we got to do this for the next podcast because we're going to run out of time, but I'll say it now just so we don't forget. The don't follow your passion thing that I sent you from what's his first name?
Oh yeah,
Roe?
let's dig into it.
It's the Dirty Jobs guy.
Yeah.
Something Roe.
Mike
Rowe. He recently put something out that was the equivalent. I want to get it right. I don't want to paint it in the wrong light, but it's something like it's silly to follow your passion, or to tell someone to follow their passion.
Yeah.
And I think I understand what he was saying.
I do.
And I believe, like, after we talked about it, I believe that he meant what you think, but he just said it wrong. I think he used the wrong word. Like, he defined something incorrectly.
Which is pretty much the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, but I think for the
Is
next
get
one,
it just wrong enough to actually get it completely wrong.
So if you want to check it out, it's probably not hard to find. It's just Google "Follow Your Passion" Mike Rowe.
ROWE.
Yeah, or "Don't Follow Your Passion," something like that. And you'll see it. But I remember the first thing I did was text you. And we need to discuss this.
Oh, here. We'll start the conversation, because I feel like we're, like, dangling a carrot and then throwing it in the garbage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they can check out the video.
They can check out the video, but basically, one of the things that he focused on was, he talked about American Idol, actually. He said, like, you have people on there that are, quote-unquote, following their passion, but they suck. So them following their passion is actually the worst thing they could do. And they should follow... What did he say you should follow? Opportunity.
It was a comedy. It was like opportunity plus. Not, you know, there were things he said that made sense, that were very pragmatic.
Actually, yeah, it was, like, very rooted in, I think, fact without psychological reality, which is, that's the kind of the flaw that I saw in it, is that those people don't have passion for singing. I don't believe. I believe those people, if you take off the singing, they have a passion for validation, which we all have. and singing is just a vehicle to get them there, or fame, or whatever that is going to get them that validation. They're like, somehow it became singing, like, oh, because singing gets you fame, singing's hard, and if you can do it, then Western culture will bow to you. It's easy money, or supposedly. So they start to think, well, I can sing, so like their lack of musical talent really isn't, they're not aware of it because they're so psychologically messed up or confused, I would say, that, nobody around them wants to tell them the truth, so they're able to...
If they could find that validation or fame somewhere else, with less resistance, they would. So their actual passion is not singing.
Yeah.
Right.
Really, their passion is so buried under probably a lot of issues that were probably more family oriented or social oriented. Maybe they're bullied. Maybe their dad beat them up. Maybe they just they just never found what they're good at, and so they just grabbed onto a low branch. And what are you going to be, an actor or singer? Like, if the lowest branch that you could grab is to go where it's free to get an audition on TV, I think, like, that's my ticket. You know what I mean? It's like, either make a YouTube video or go to a free audition where you could potentially, like, be given a record deal and be on TV. So it's like,
ooh, game over.
So we'll wrap it up, but basically,
so wrap up music.
I think it's more follow your passion, but figure out what your passion is by actually taking a humble mindset and getting healthy as a human being and allowing truth into your life. Ask people what they really think and being able to really accept that fact, and look at yourself.
The other thing that you mentioned when we talked is that there might actually be some psychological issues with that individual.
Yeah, that's the core of all of it. Like, whether
there could be, they're not all there. Mm-hmm. and which, I mean, watching American Idol or
they prey on those
types of shows, it's certainly it's not a rare thing.
The first handful of episodes are them basically capitalizing on the fact that can be funny.
There are people that just they're not rooted in reality. But the Mike Rowe thing, though, I think I think he took something that was pretty complex and tried to turn it into a meme.
Yeah.
Where it was like, hey, don't do this, do this. And it's just,
can't.
I think he missed the mark enough to just have a discussion about it and maybe present, not poke holes in it and say, hey, you're wrong, because I think a lot of it was right. I think maybe he swapped out some words that were
really key identifiers.
Yeah, like that's not the right word for that, but I get what you're trying to say. But yeah, I think we should dive into that a little bit more next time.
One more thought on the whole psychology issue of like you said, it's definitely on a spectrum, because you have people that are, I think, very broken to the point where it would take a lot of therapy, or maybe they have something that diagnosable and then there's just that little skewed thing of just they're putting their self-image and their self-worth in a spot that helps them hold their life together and not fall apart, and they're like, I'm a singer, like I do this other job and I hate it, but I'm really a singer. That's the one you see the most often on shows like that. It's like that person who's not, you wouldn't say it's just needs to be admitted or something, or is just completely out of it, not in their right mind, but that just is in denial about their life and just is trying to hold it together and trying to reach for that lowest branch. But hey, be yourself, be passionate.
Follow your dreams.
Follow your dreams and stick to what you know. And no, it's been good. Sorry we've been a little, 3 or 4 weeks late on the podcast, but we are back now. We're going to be consistent. We've all been very busy. I've basically just been doing push-ups and eating burgers. No, but we're back, so stay tuned for the next one. This guy is called
Mike Jackson.
This guy is called See You Later.
Ringing sound, poison rain, don't come around. the